I thought you were a good daughter-in-law, but it seems I was wrong. Leave this house and never come back. You're nothing but a parasite. Pack your things and go. Ever since my husband passed away, my mother-in-law Sarah and sister-in-law Catherine have been saying mean things to me. Even though I've been taking care of Sarah, my husband was worried about her until the end. And yet Catherine says bad things about him, and I couldn't help but argue back. If you both feel that way, I understand. I'll leave. When I said that Sarah and Catherine were happy, but a few months later, they were begging me, the bad luck I wished for them was worse than I thought. My name is Emily. I'm 32 years old and work as a buyer for famous brands. I met my husband Tom through a friend. Tom was kind and calm, just the husband I wanted, so I said yes when he proposed. Tom's parents were independent, so I got along well with them and didn't have any problems with my mother-in-law. Having a caring mother-in-law and practical father-in-law seemed perfect to me. Tom worried about his mom's financial future because she didn't think much about money. He thought it would be fine as long as his dad, who was responsible with money, was healthy. Tom also had an older sister, Catherine, who was divorced and lived alone. He figured she'd take care of their parents later on, but Tom didn't fully trust Catherine. I'm worried about giving our family money matters to Catherine. Why? There were problems before. I didn't think much about Catherine's past then, but later Tom's worries turned out to be true. After I married Tom and had a few peaceful years, his dad got sicker and died. Since Sarah always depended on her husband, she was devastated. It's tough now, Sarah, but let's try to move on. I've always let my husband handle everything. I don't know how to do it alone. Tom was worried about his mom living alone, and I shared his concern. As our son, he must have been really stressed about it. Then one night he came to me with an idea. Emily, what if my mom comes to live with us? It was unexpected, but I had a feeling he might suggest this someday. But what about Catherine? What about her? Shouldn't she, as the daughter, take care of Mom instead of us? I want to step up and take Dad's place, looking after Mom. She's not great with money, so I'll handle her finances too. Can't we ask Catherine to do that? No, that won't work. It was rare for Tom to firmly say no to my idea. I want to make sure Dad's money is well taken care of so Mom won't struggle later on. Even though he felt bad about asking me to live together, Tom was determined to handle Dad's inheritance and savings. It's okay. I think we'll all be happy living together with your mom. I'm genuinely worried about her being alone too. Oh, Emily, thank you so much. And so we started our new life as a family of 3 in Sarah's house, just like she promised. Sarah left everything for her husband to handle, from bank accounts to bills and credit cards. She didn't really understand any of it. Tom managed her money separately from ours and decided to give her a monthly allowance for her expenses. Whenever Sarah was tempted by dodgy salespeople or pressured to buy expensive stuff by friends, it was Tom's job to guide her. If he didn't, she might end up with a lot of debt because she was careless with money. By taking on the role of her husband, Tom made his mom happy. Seeing her happier also made Tom feel better. Sarah helped out with the household chores since I was working, and everything was going smoothly. But our peaceful life came to an abrupt halt. Tom collapsed at work. He had the same illness as his dad, might have pushed himself too hard during a busy time, ending up in the hospital. Sarah and I visited him almost every day, but Tom didn't seem to be getting better. Emily, I need to talk to you about what happens after I'm gone. Don't say that. Let's focus. I'm getting you better so we can go back to living with your mom just like before. I knew I might get sick like Dad, so I'm prepared. But there's one thing I need you to do for me regarding Mom. Trying to hold back tears, I listened closely to my husband's last request. A few weeks later, Tom passed away. Dealing with telling relatives, sorting things out with his job, and planning the funeral kept me busy and distracted from the grief. Once everything was settled, I remembered what Tom had asked of me. There was no time to mourn. Now I had to step into Tom's shoes and take care of my mother-in-law. "I'm sorry I've been occupied lately, Sarah. From now on, I'll handle the money matters instead of Tom. Don't worry, I'll make sure we have enough for our monthly expenses. Emily, are you still going to stay with me now that Tom is gone?" "Absolutely, Tom always told me to take care of you. Let's keep supporting each other." "I understand." Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she spoke. "I'm sorry for putting the burden of finances on you while you're already busy. Don't worry, keeping busy helps me cope, so it's actually helpful. But Catherine didn't seem happy about me living with her mom. When she found out I was not only staying but also handling the money, she burst into the house in anger." "Why is Emily, an outsider, still here after Tom's gone? And why is she in charge of the money? Doesn't that seem strange to you? Before Tom passed away, he asked me to take care of Sarah and handle the finances." Are you just saying that conveniently?" "No, it's what Tom wanted." "Is there some hidden reason behind this? And are you using Tom's name to your advantage?" Catherine wasn't convinced, but she backed off for the time being. However, the next week she came back furious. "Emily, what do you think you're doing?" "I saw everything." "What are you talking about? You're having an affair, aren't you?" "I saw you going into a men's store and dining at a fancy restaurant with a man. Are you using Tom's money on your lover?" "That's not true. I haven't spent any money like that on someone else. Your excuse pieces won't cut it. It hasn't been long since Tom passed away, and you're already moving on to someone new. Have you no shame?" "Mother, don't you agree?" Influenced by Catherine's words, Sarah started to doubt me too. "Emily, is it true?" "No, that's not what happened. I'm just following Tom's wishes." I tried to explain, but Catherine interrupted me. "How dare you bring up Tom's name after cheating on him? How could you sink so low?" I fell silent, feeling a cold stare from both Catherine and Sarah. Then Sarah spoke up. "I used to think you were a good daughter-in-law, but I was wrong. I never want to see you again. Leave." Catherine chimed in triumphantly. "That's right, parasites like you don't belong here." Determined not to let Tom's wishes go to waste, I endured it all. With that resolve, I remained silent, but Sarah and Catherine didn't stop there. They continued to hurl hurtful words at me. "Poor Tom picking someone like you. He was always so easily fooled, you know. Maybe he tricked you into thinking he'd handle the money, but actually used Mom's money for himself. To tarnish Tom's memory, especially when he cared so much about his mom, is unforgivable to me. I could handle them saying bad things about me, but I can't stand them insulting my late husband. I'm sorry, Tom, for not keeping our promise." I silently apologized to him as I turned to Sarah and Catherine. "I understand. I'll leave like you both want." Hearing my words, the two exchanged looks and grinned. "Finally seeing reason, huh? Leave the bank book here when you go." "Sure." I handed over the bank book containing Sarah's living expenses and her husband's inheritance, then left the house. But 3 months later, I got a call from Sarah, whom I had distanced myself from. "Emily, they're saying I can't pay my car bill." "Why? What's happening?" "Maybe you spent too much and don't have enough left. You should check your balance using your bank book." "How will I do that?" It seems Sarah hadn't changed. She was still careless about money even after I left. As I thought this, Sarah started yelling at me angrily. "This never happened when you were here. Suddenly, after you left, the money's gone. You must have stolen it. I can't believe this. Come here right now." Furious, Sarah hung up the phone. Feeling heavy-hearted, I reluctantly went to her house. When I arrived, both Sarah and Catherine were waiting for me. Ignoring Sarah's anger, I accessed her online banking, checked the balance, and showed it to her. "Here's the transaction history for this account. As you can see, while I was managing it, the balance never went negative. Do you understand?" Because I was saving money. It's hard to believe that you, who aren't good with money, would suddenly start saving. Actually, the balance stayed positive because I was depositing $1,500 every month for living expenses. Living expenses? I didn't know about that. Tom and I did it while he was alive. We decided to use our money to cover your expenses so your savings wouldn't go down. Really? Tom did that? Yes, even after he passed away. I kept doing it with $1,500 for my own salary, but when you asked me to leave, I stopped. Then I continued showing Sarah the transaction details. Let's see the transactions after I left. There are more than $1,500 being taken out, suggesting big expenses. I didn't change my spending habits. Maybe Catherine used it. With that, I shifted the conversation to Catherine. Looking at the details, there were car payments at fancy stores and restaurants. I can't picture Sarah spending money at those places. Catherine, do you have any clue? It wasn't me, but I can't think of anyone else who might have used it. But could it be you? Did you secretly use a family card or something? I see you at those shops and restaurants. Before, even now, you're still using Mom's money. How low can you go? Can you just stop? I was there for work. The meals were for a meeting with a shop owner. Just because I say it's for work, you think you can't trust me. Fine, let's confirm it right now. I immediately called the shop owner. Thank you for always helping us out. Yes, it was last Friday and the item was, well, I was checking some details on the phone. Catherine just stared blankly. Thank you. Can you include that as well? After ending the call and checking my email, I showed Catherine and Sarah the attached photo. It showed Catherine shopping at the store. What's this? Catherine looked shocked as she saw the photo. It seems the security camera caught you, Catherine, buying these luxury items. When I spoke to the shop owner, they confirmed it right away. I'm pretty sure the person in this photo is you, don't you agree? Catherine was speechless. The shop owner also mentioned that items matching the ones you bought have been showing up at pawn shops lately. The dates and items matched the ones when you used the card, right? Catherine's voice shook and she seemed confused. Sarah, looking puzzled, asked Catherine, but why go through all this trouble? Buying something and then selling it to a pawn shop right away. Since Catherine didn't seem willing to answer, I spoke up. She probably needed cash quickly. If she took it straight from the bank account, it would have been noticed right away. So you tried to frame me by shopping at my workplace, making it look like I was the one spending money, didn't you? Catherine couldn't defend herself and stayed silent. Meanwhile, Sarah seemed to have more questions and kept pressing Catherine. Catherine, why do you need so much money? Well, I had debts to repay, Catherine confessed quietly. But I added more to her confession. You didn't tell Sarah about it, did you? Do you know why Catherine got divorced? It was because of her debts. Tom often mentioned how troubled he was because Catherine kept asking to borrow money. This has been going on since before Catherine got married. Even after she got married, Tom complained that Catherine's spending habits hadn't changed. You had debts. Sarah then remembered something. The money your father left you, Catherine. I gave you a bank book with the inheritance in it, didn't I? Don't tell me even that money. At Sarah's request, I checked the balance of the bank account where the inheritance was kept. Sarah, the bank account is completely empty. What? Completely empty? But a few days after I left the house, all the money was taken out of the account. No, this can't be. Sarah collapsed to her knees, yelling at Catherine in anger. What's the problem? I had to meet my repayment deadline. My father would have let me, his daughter, use the inheritance however I wanted. I can't believe it. Sarah is so stunned. It seems Tom was right all along. He always said letting Catherine handle money was risky. He probably saw this coming. Sarah gave Catherine a stern look. That money wasn't just for me, you know. You got your share of the inheritance, right? Who uses someone else's money? You're the one taking advantage of this house. Leave. We're done. Mom, wait. Didn't we agree that I would live here in Emily's place after she left? If I stay with someone like you, I'll end up in debt too. I expect you to return every cent of your father's inheritance. With those words, Sarah forcefully kicked Catherine out of the house. However, I'm unsure if it was the right outcome. Since then, we've lost all contact with Catherine, and Sarah never got back any of the misused inheritance. If she still had it, Sarah could have lived comfortably in her old age. But now she lives in poverty and loneliness. On the other hand, even though Catherine used the inheritance to pay off her debts, her spending habits didn't change, and she's accumulated even more debt. Without money to repay her debts, she keeps moving to avoid her loan sharks. Only now do I truly feel the weight of Tom's passing. Though things turned out differently from Tom's last wish, I believe I haven't done anything wrong. Tom wanted me to prioritize my happiness above all else. Living with Sarah and Catherine would have gone against Tom's wishes for our well-being. I believe he would understand. From now on, with memories of Tom in my heart, I'll take a new step forward.
Marcus packed his fancy shirts into a suitcase, barely glancing at me. "The kids will understand," he said. "They'll love Amanda. She's great with children." I stood in the doorway, watching the man I had been married to for 15 years pack up his life. His words made my stomach turn, but I kept my face calm. "They're only 8 and 10, Marcus. They barely know her." He shrugged, carefully placing his expensive watches into a case. "Kids adapt. Besides, they'll have to. We're moving in together next week. My name is Emma. I'm 38 years old, and my husband was leaving me and our kids for his 26-year-old yoga instructor. But I wasn't crying. I wasn't begging him to stay. Instead, I was thinking about the phone call I got yesterday from our family lawyer. "And the divorce?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "When are you filing?" Marcus smirked. "No need for all that, Em. Amanda and I think we should keep things simple. No lawyers, no splitting money. Let's just move on." Of course he wanted that, because he didn't know about my father's trust fund. He had no idea that his plans were about to fall apart. "Whatever you think is best," I said, watching him zip up his bags. He paused at the doorway, eyeing me suspiciously. "You're taking this better than I expected." I smiled, thinking about the bank statement arriving tomorrow. I've learned to adapt. 12 hours earlier, I had sat in Mr. Thompson's office, our lawyer, as he explained something that changed everything. "Your father was a smart man, Emma," he said, pulling out a thick folder. "Before he passed, he created a trust fund for you and your children, with some very special rules. I remember my father's words before he died. Always have a backup plan, Emma. Always be 3 steps ahead. The trust fund becomes active if your husband tries to abandon his financial responsibilities to your children." Mr. Thompson explained. "Your father wanted to make sure his grandchildren were protected. I thought about how Marcus always controlled our money, how he gave me an allowance while he spent freely on himself. And Marcus doesn't know about this?" I asked. Mr. Thompson smiled. "Your father was clear. Marcus was never supposed to know unless he triggered the conditions. And since he's been emptying accounts and trying to sell property without your consent, it's time." Now, I watched Marcus load his bags into his shiny sports car, completely unaware that by tomorrow, his bank accounts would be frozen. "I'll call you about seeing the kids," he said, closing the trunk. "Once Amanda and I are settled." Upstairs, our children, Lily and James, watched their father leave. Lily pressed her small hand against the window, confused and hurt. James stood behind her, his face angry. No 10-year-old should have to feel that. "Take care, Marcus," I said softly. He drove away without looking back. He thought he was heading toward a perfect new life. But by tomorrow morning, the money he'd been secretly using to pay for Amanda's luxury apartment would be gone. I walked back inside and climbed the stairs to my children's rooms. They needed me now more than ever. But I wasn't worried about our future. My father had made sure we would be okay. Lily looked up at me, tears in her eyes. Is Daddy really going to live with his friend now? I sat on her bed, pulling both her and James close. "Yes, sweetie. But we're going to be okay. Better than okay. How do you know? James asked, trying to sound tough. I thought about the trust fund, about everything my father had planned to protect us. I thought about Marcus's face when he realized he had lost everything. Because your grandpa made sure of it, I said, hugging them tighter. And tomorrow, Daddy is going to learn what happens when someone forgets what really matters. That night, as my children slept, I sat in my office, getting ready for what came next. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Amanda thinks we should take the kids to Disneyland next month. Show them how fun their new life can be. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my email. Mr. Thompson had sent me tomorrow's schedule. While Marcus dreamed about vacations, a team of financial experts was already tracking every bad decision he had made. The kids would be okay. I would make sure of it. And as for Marcus, he was about to learn that some choices have consequences. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 7:15 a.m. Marcus's name flashed on the screen, but I ignored it. By the fourth call, I could imagine his panic. His credit cards weren't working, his bank accounts were locked, and all his secrets were coming out. I was making breakfast for the kids when the front door burst open. Marcus stormed in, his face red with anger. "What did you do?" he shouted, waving his phone. "Every account is frozen, even my personal ones." Lily stopped eating her pancakes. James gripped his fork tightly. I stayed calm, pouring more orange juice. "Kids, why don't you eat in the playroom? Mom needs to talk to Dad." Once they were gone, I turned to Marcus. "Rough morning?" "Fix this," he demanded. "Amanda and I were supposed to put a deposit on our new house today. The realtor is waiting." I leaned against the counter, remembering how he had always brushed off my concerns about money. "I'm not the one you need to talk to. Our lawyer, Mr. Thompson, is handling everything now." "What does that old fossil have to do with this?" The doorbell rang. Perfect timing. I opened it to find Mr. Thompson, looking sharp in his charcoal suit, holding a thick folder. "Mrs. Sullivan," he greeted me. "And Mr. Sullivan, good. This saves me a phone call." Marcus frowned. "What's going on?" "Please have a seat," Mr. Thompson said, placing his briefcase on the table. "We have a lot to discuss about your financial decisions." "My finances are none of your business," Marcus snapped. "Actually," Mr. Thompson said, opening his folder, "they became my business the moment you violated the rules of the Sullivan Family Trust." Marcus's face turned pale. "What trust?" "The one Emma's father created before he passed away. It has been watching your financial activities for the past 15 years, Mr. Thompson explained. And it activates when a spouse tries to abandon their financial responsibilities to the children. Marcus dropped into a chair, his confidence fading. "That's impossible." "I would have known." "Would you?" I asked. "You always told me not to worry about complicated money stuff. You never even read the documents." Mr. Thompson pulled out some papers. "Let's review your actions. Last month, you emptied 3 joint accounts. You tried to sell properties that belonged to the trust. You made large payments to an outside party." "Those were business expenses," Marcus interrupted. "The rent for Amanda's apartment wasn't a business expense," I said. "Neither was the car or the jewelry you bought her." Marcus's eyes widened. "You knew." "I knew everything," I said. "My dad taught me to always be prepared." Mr. Thompson continued. "The trust has rules about financial misconduct. All joint assets are frozen. Your personal accounts are under investigation. The properties you tried to sell are protected by the trust." "You can't do this," Marcus muttered. "We already have," Mr. Thompson replied, pulling out another document. "Your actions triggered the trust's rules. All assets will be managed by the trust until your divorce is finalized." "Divorce?" Marcus jumped up, knocking over his chair. "I told you, we were keeping this informal." "That's not an option anymore," Mr. Thompson said. "The trust requires a legal divorce to protect the children's interests." I heard a small sound and turned to see James and Lily peeking from the hallway. Their faces were filled with worry. "Perhaps we should continue this at my office," Mr. Thompson suggested. 2 p.m. today. Your presence is required, Mr. Sullivan." Marcus looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. I saw fear in his eyes. "Emma, we can fix this. Amanda and I will figure something out." I thought about all the times he had ignored me, controlled me, made me feel small. "No, Marcus, we can't. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it. After they left, Marcus, probably to explain to Amanda why their house wasn't happening, and Mr. Thompson to prepare for our meeting, I sat with my kids in the playroom. Is Dad in trouble? James asked. Dad made some bad choices, I said, pulling them close. But Grandpa made sure we'd be okay. Even though Grandpa is in heaven? Lily asked. I smiled, thinking about my father's wisdom, especially because he's in heaven. He loved us so much, he made sure we'd always be taken care of. My phone buzzed. A text from Amanda. This isn't fair. Marcus promised me that house. I blocked her number without replying. The trust fund hadn't just protected us. It had revealed who Marcus and Amanda truly were. They thought I was weak. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. 6 months passed, bringing changes I never expected. The divorce proceedings moved swiftly, backed by the trust fund's legal team. Marcus's attempts to hide assets crumbled under forensic accounting. Amanda disappeared the moment she realized there would be no luxury house, no lavish lifestyle, no easy path to wealth. I sat in Mr. Thompson's office, reviewing the final settlement papers. The trust fund hadn't just protected us. It had revealed years of Marcus's financial deceptions. Your father would be proud, Mr. Thompson said, sliding the last document across his desk. He always said you were stronger than anyone knew. I wish he could see the kids now, I replied, thinking of how well they'd adjusted. They're finally healing. The transformation in my children had been remarkable. Once the initial shock wore off, they began to thrive. James joined the school baseball team, his confidence growing with each game. Lily discovered a passion for art, filling our home with bright paintings that somehow made everything feel lighter. Marcus's weekly visits became monthly, then sporadic. His promises of Disneyland and grand adventures faded into rushed dinners and distracted conversations. The children noticed, but instead of breaking them, it made them stronger. Mom, James said one evening after a particularly short visit with his father, I think I understand why Grandpa made that trust thing. Oh, I looked up from my book, curious. He knew sometimes grown-ups make bad choices. He wanted to make sure we'd be okay anyway. Out of the mouths of babes. The doorbell rang one Sunday afternoon while we were baking cookies. Marcus stood there, looking deflated in a way I'd never seen before. Gone were the designer clothes and expensive watch. He looked ordinary. Can we talk? He asked. I hesitated, but the kids were upstairs. 5 minutes. He shuffled into the kitchen, eyeing the familiar space like a stranger. Amanda's gone, he said finally, moved to California with some tech entrepreneur. I'm sorry to hear that, I replied, though we both knew I wasn't. I was stupid, Emma. I threw away everything that mattered for nothing. I thought about responding, about pointing out all the ways he'd hurt us. But what was the point? His consequences weren't my responsibility anymore. The kids miss you, I said instead. When you do show up. He flinched. I know. It's hard seeing them, seeing what I gave up. They're not a punishment, Marcus. They're your children. He nodded, running a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I remembered from our early days. Your father, he was smarter than I ever gave him credit for. That trust fund, he knew, didn't he? He knew someone like me might come along. He knew people make choices, I corrected. He just made sure those choices couldn't hurt his grandchildren. As if on cue, Lily's laughter drifted down from upstairs, followed by James's playful shout. The sound seemed to hit Marcus like a physical blow. I'd like to do better, he said quietly. Be better. For them. That's your choice to make, I replied, just like all the others. After he left, I found my father's old photo on the mantel. He was smiling, one arm around me at my college graduation. He'd already been sick then, but his eyes were sharp, determined. You were right, Dad, I whispered. About everything. Today, a year after Marcus first walked out, our lives have found a new rhythm. The trust fund ensured we kept our home. The children's education would be secure, and we had the freedom to rebuild without fear. Marcus, he's trying in his way. Weekly dinners with the kids, showing up to James's baseball games, attending Lily's art shows. It's not the family we were, but maybe it's the family we needed to become. I started my own business, something I'd always dreamed of but never dared pursue under Marcus's controlling influence. The children are thriving in ways that amaze me daily. James recently won his first baseball trophy, and Lily's art was featured in the school gallery. Last week, I found a letter from my father tucked away in his old desk, written days before he died, saved for when I might need it most. My dearest Emma, by the time you read this, you'll understand why I set up the trust the way I did. Not just to protect you, but to remind you of your own strength. Sometimes the best way to love someone is to make sure they have the freedom to stand on their own. You've always been stronger than you knew. Now the world will see it too. Love, Dad. I keep that letter framed in my office now, next to the children's photos and Lily's brightest paintings. It reminds me that sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting better. Marcus's choices didn't break us. Instead, they revealed just how unbreakable we really were. And for that, strangely enough, I'm grateful. Because in the end, my father was right. The trust fund wasn't just about money. It was about giving us the strength to choose our own path, to build something better from the ashes of what was lost. And that's exactly what we did. Get out. My son deserves better than you, Martha shouted, pushing me out onto the cold porch at 2 a.m. The freezing air cut through my thin pajamas. You're 45. You can't give him children. He needs someone younger. I watched as she locked the door, her hands shaking with anger, or maybe satisfaction. Through the window, I saw my husband, David, passed out on the couch, too drunk to notice. My name is Isabella. At 45, my mother-in-law just threw me out of my own home while my husband lay unconscious. But I didn't cry. I didn't beg. Instead, I walked to my car and made a call. Hey, Sophie, can I stay with you for a few days? Just some house issues. As I drove, I thought about the red flags I had ignored. The secret calls, Martha's sudden interest in our fertility struggles, the young woman at their church. David and I met when I was 40 and he was 38. It was a whirlwind romance. He didn't care about the age gap, but Martha did. No matter what I did, cooking her favorite meals, helping with her charities, it was never enough. When I arrived, Sophie was already waiting. Izzy, what happened? And don't lie. I sighed. Martha finally did it. She kicked me out. What? She can't do that. The house is in your name too. Actually, I said, settling onto her couch, it's only in my name. Sophie's jaw dropped. I opened my laptop, showing her documents, emails, bank statements, deeds. Years ago, David transferred everything to me to protect our assets during a lawsuit. Martha never knew. And that's not all. I continued pulling up another folder. Photos showed Martha with a young woman, Jessica, 28. They were shopping, having lunch, even visiting a fertility clinic. Martha's been preparing Jessica to replace me, I said. She promised her my house, my cars, everything, but none of it belongs to her. Sophie shook her head. So what's your plan? I smiled. First, sleep, then my lawyer. For 2 days, I stayed quiet. I ignored David's calls and Martha's texts. My lawyer worked fast. Your security footage proves Martha broke into your office, he said. With a conspiracy to steal your assets, we have a case. And the restraining order? I asked. Ready to be filed. Neither Martha nor Jessica will be allowed near your properties. On the 3rd day, I made my move. First, the police removed Martha and Jessica from my house. Then they were served restraining orders. Finally, I changed the locks, this time with a high-tech security system. Later, David showed up, confused. Izzy, what's going on? Mom said you left me for another man. Then the police came. I slid a folder toward him. Your mother lied. She threw me out and tried to move your girlfriend in. Yes, I know about Jessica, the fertility clinic, everything. David's face went pale. Wait, the house, the cars, they're all in your name. Everything, I said. And now your mother is facing criminal charges. But she was just trying to help me, he mumbled. I laughed. Help? By destroying our marriage? By plotting with another woman? That's not help, David. That's manipulation. Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from Martha. Please, we need to talk. I didn't know. Please don't do this. I showed it to David. Your mother made her choice. Now, what's yours? David sat across from me, looking shocked and confused. He ran his hands through his graying hair. I never meant for this to happen, he said. Mom kept saying we needed a fresh start, that you were holding me back. And Jessica? I asked quietly. Was she part of this fresh start? David flinched. Nothing happened. Mom introduced us at church, kept inviting her over when you were working late. She said Jessica reminded her of herself when she was young. I turned my laptop toward him. Nothing happened. Then explained this. On the screen, Martha and Jessica were in my office, trying on my jewelry, looking through my files. They were in our house, David, planning their future with my things while you were passed out drunk. His face crumpled. I didn't know, I swear, Azzy. I took a deep breath. Your mother kicks me out at 2 a.m., moves in a younger woman, and you thought that was okay. Before he could answer, my phone buzzed again. More messages from Martha. I was just trying to protect my son. Please don't destroy our family. The police said I could go to jail. You wouldn't do that to David's mother, would you? I showed them to David. She still thinks she can manipulate her way out of this. David looked lost. What do you want me to do? I want you to make a choice, I said. Not your mother's, not Jessica's. Yours. The doorbell rang. I checked the security camera. Martha stood on the porch, her mascara running. Jessica stood behind her, looking scared. They're breaking the restraining order, I said, picking up my phone. Wait, David said, touching my hand. Let me talk to them first. I studied his face. For the first time in months, he looked clear-headed. 5 minutes, I said. And they stay outside. David stepped onto the porch and shut the door behind him. I watched through the security camera. Martha reached for him, but he stepped back. How could you do this, Mom? He asked. You broke into our house. You went through Izzy's things. I did it for you, Martha cried. She's too old for you, David. She can't give you children. Jessica is young, fertile. Stop it, David snapped. You didn't do this for me. You did it for yourself. You never accepted my marriage, and now you've gone too far. Jessica spoke up. David, your mom said you loved me, that you were just waiting for the right time to leave her. David shook his head. I never said that. Mom, you told me Jessica was just a friend. But you were planning to ruin my marriage. Martha's face hardened. She'll send me to jail. Your own mother. How can you let her do this? You did this to yourself, David said quietly. Breaking into our home, trying to steal from Izzy. Those were your choices. Martha's face fell. Jessica was already backing away, realizing she wasn't getting my house after all. David, please, Martha begged. Tell her to drop the charges. No, Mom, he said firmly. I won't ask her to do that. You need to leave. Now, before I call the police myself. I watched as they left. I felt relief, sadness, and something close to pride. David had finally stood up to his mother. When he came back inside, his eyes were red, but his shoulders were straight. I'm so sorry, Ezzy, he said. I've been a fool. Yes, you have, I said, but gently. What happens now? He sighed. I need help. I've been drinking too much, letting Mom control me. I don't want to lose you, but I understand if it's too late. I sat beside him, close but not touching. It's not too late, but things have to change. Your mother has to face the consequences. You need help for your drinking. And we need counseling. A lot of it. Anything, he said. I'll do anything to fix this. Just then, my phone buzzed again. A message from Martha. You've turned my son against me. I will never forgive you for this. I showed it to David. He sighed. She still doesn't get it. But I do. I choose you, Izzy. I choose us. As the security system beeped, showing Martha's car leaving the street, David squeezed my hand. I squeezed back. Sometimes everything has to fall apart before you can build something stronger. 6 months passed like seasons changing, each day bringing small but significant transformations. David kept his promise, attending AA meetings 3 times a week and counseling sessions twice a month. I went with him to couples therapy, where we slowly rebuilt the trust that had been fractured. Martha faced the consequences of her actions. The court showed leniency due to her age and David's plea, sentencing her to 2 years probation and mandatory counseling. She was also ordered to pay substantial restitution for the items she damaged in my office during her break-ins. Jessica disappeared from our lives completely. Last I heard, she'd moved to another state, perhaps finally understanding that she'd been a pawn in Martha's game. One crisp autumn evening, as David and I sat on our back porch watching the sunset, he turned to me with clear, sober eyes. You know what I realized today? It's been exactly 6 months since that night. I nodded, sipping my tea. The memory of that cold midnight eviction no longer stung like it used to. A lot has changed. Mom called again, he said quietly. She wants to apologize in person. Says her counselor thinks it's important for her healing process. I considered this for a moment. And what do you think? I think, he said slowly, that for the first time in her life, she's actually doing the work. But I also think it's your decision. She hurt you more than anyone. His words warmed me more than the tea. 6 months ago, he would have pressured me to forgive and forget, to keep the peace. Now he understood the importance of boundaries. We can meet at a neutral place, I suggested. That little cafe downtown, perhaps. 2 days later, I sat across from Martha in the sunny cafe. She looked different, smaller somehow, less imposing. The perfectly coiffed hair and designer clothes were gone, replaced by a simple sweater and minimal makeup. Thank you for agreeing to see me, she began, her hands wrapped tightly around her coffee cup. My counselor wanted me to tell you how sorry I am, but that feels inadequate. It is, I agreed calmly. She flinched but continued. I was wrong. Not just about what I did, but about everything. I thought I was protecting David, but I was only protecting my own ego. Seeing him so happy with someone who didn't need my guidance, it made me feel obsolete. You're his mother, Martha. You could never be obsolete unless you choose to be. Tears welled in her eyes. I chose wrong. I let my pride and prejudice blind me. Watching David these past months, he's happier, healthier. He finally grew into the man he was meant to be, and it happened when I stepped back, not when I tried to control everything. I stirred my tea thoughtfully. You know, this doesn't fix everything, right? Trust has to be rebuilt. Boundaries have to be respected. I know, she nodded. I'm not asking for forgiveness yet. I'm just asking for a chance to prove I can change. As I drove home later, I thought about change and redemption. Martha's actions had nearly destroyed our family, but they'd also forced us to confront long-standing issues. David found sobriety and independence. I found my voice and strength. Even Martha was finally facing her own demons. David was waiting when I got home, trying not to look anxious. How did it go? I hung up my coat, considering my answer. Better than I expected. She's different, more genuine. Time will tell if it lasts. He pulled me into a hug, and I relaxed against him. Thank you, he whispered into my hair, for not giving up on us, for being stronger than all of us. That night, as we lay in bed, David already asleep beside me, I remembered standing in the cold 6 months ago, wondering if our marriage was over. Instead, it had been a beginning, the start of something stronger, more honest, more real. My phone lit up with a text from Martha. Thank you for today. I know I have a long way to go, but I'm trying. I hope someday you can trust me again. I typed back a simple response, one day at a time. It was what David always said at his AA meetings, and it felt right for this situation too. Change doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen, one choice, one day, one moment at a time. As I drifted off to sleep, I thought about the ace I'd had up my sleeve that night, not just the legal documents or the surveillance footage, but the strength to stand up for myself, to demand better, to allow consequences to unfold naturally. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's giving people the space to face their own actions and grow from them. And sometimes, like a garden after a storm, what grows back is stronger than what was there before.